Hi, you're watching This Brown Geek, and one of these three webcams is the new Elgato Facecam MK2. Which one is it? One of them is the Apple Facetime HD camera built into the MacBook Pro, and the other one is the Logitech C920 that's popular with a lot of streamers. Keep watching to find out which one's which, and keep watching to find out my settings for the Elgato Facecam MK2 and my thoughts on whether or not you should buy this webcam. Here we go. Right, so here we are. Could you guess which one was which? The first one, right at the top in the middle, is of course the MacBook Pro FaceTime HD camera that's built into the MacBook Pro, and the camera quality is like this. We'll get into it. Next up, on the bottom left, we have the Logitech C920. Of course, this webcam is really popular with a lot of streamers out there, and it's been around for a really long time. This webcam is 1080p at 30 frames per second. The MacBook Pro is 1080p, it's probably at 30 frames per second by the looks of it. And finally, on the bottom right, we have the Elgato Facecam MK2, which of course is 1080p at 60 frames per second, and it has HDR, which I have disabled right now, and I'll let you know why. So let's take a look at the quality between these three webcams, and then we'll get into what comes in the box, and I'll tell you all about the Elgato Facecam MK2 and my settings. Honestly, you need to watch this to get the best out of this webcam. Seriously, you'll see what I mean in a minute. So first up, we have the MacBook Pro FaceTime HD camera. This MacBook Pro costs over £2,500, and this is the quality you get from the webcam. In my opinion, it's muddy, it's atrocious, it makes my skin extremely smooth, and I just don't see the point of this. Even the colors are off. I look like a Simpsons character. The blue in my hooded top here is not true to life. It bumps up the ISO way too much, and then it smooths the hell out of it. Next up, we have the Logitech C920. This is the best I could get it to look in these lighting conditions, and I do have lights set up here. Honestly, I'm not very impressed with this anymore, and it's showing its age. It's still a 1080p image at 30 frames per second, and it does have autofocus. The Elgato Facecam MK2 does not, but that is a bonus, trust me. I've had to turn autofocus off on the Logitech C920 right now because it kept on focus breathing and it was driving me crazy. But anyways, this is the Logitech C920. And finally, we have the Elgato Facecam MK2. As you can see here, the colors in my hooded top are true to life. I wore this hooded top as opposed to my usual black Tesla hooded top that I wear because we needed some color in this video. If I just wore the black hooded top, we'd have no colors to compare really. As you can see in this image, it is 1080p, it's at 60 frames per second, and like I said, I have turned high dynamic range off for reasons that we'll get into in a minute. But first things first, this is the packaging for the Facecam MK2. This was sent to me by Elgato. They reached out to me to review this webcam, and I just want to thank Elgato for sponsoring this video. No money changed hands, and they don't get to see this video before I upload it. So all of these views are my own. This is an actual review comparing it to the other webcams that I own. If there's something I don't like about this webcam, I will tell you. So what's in the box? Of course, you get the Elgato Facecam MK2, which is a given. I'll show you some B-roll of that as we're talking. You also get a 2 meter, really thick, high quality USB Type A to USB Type C cable. This cable is rated at 5 gigabits per second. It's a really good cable actually, and it's 2 meters long, which is really appreciated. And of course, you get the mount for the webcam, which is an updated design and is more reminiscent of the Elgato Facecam Pro. The original Facecam, the mount for that wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. It had like this neck, and it made your webcam sit higher than it needed to if you're mounting it directly on your monitor. And this one, with the mount being more like the Elgato Facecam Pro, it sits closer to your monitor, it's closer to your eye line, and honestly, it's great. It's adjustable, it sits on your monitor really easily. I mean, right now it's sitting on top of my MacBook Pro, and as you know, the MacBook Pro screen is super thin and it's sitting on there just fine, and you can angle it and you can turn it left and right. So it's great, no complaints with the mount, and it is removable, so you can mount the webcam directly on a tripod or a webcam stand or whatever you want. So let's talk about some of these webcam specs, and as I do that, I'll put it on here so you can see the difference between all three of these webcams. So first things first, as you can see, the Elgato has a field of view of 84 degrees. The Logitech on the bottom left, that has a field of view of 78 degrees, and the MacBook Pro Facetime HD camera, I don't know what the field of view for that one is, but it's a lot less than both of these. Actually, it's quite similar to the Logitech C920. I say that's probably about 75 degrees if I had to guess. Like I said before, the Elgato Facecam MK2 shoots in 1080p 60. It can also go to 720p at 120 frames per second. The Logitech shoots at 1080p 30, and the MacBook Pro Facetime HD camera is 1080p, and I'm assuming it's 30. Maybe it's 60, but then again, who really cares? The MacBook Pro Facetime HD camera is terrible. The Elgato Facecam MK2 also uses the Sony Starvis CMOS sensor, which is great. And as you can see, the image that we're getting from the sensor is really clean. It's uncompressed directly from the sensor, so there's no lag and there's no compression. I think it's a beautiful image. So anyways, let's jump over to Camera Hub, because this Elgato webcam is compatible with Elgato's Camera Hub. And this software, in my opinion, is awesome because it gives you DSLR level control for your webcam, which we don't really see that often. So let's start at the top. As you can see, we're at 1080p 60. It's an uncompressed video feed. Now under frame, we have zoom, so you can zoom in and out. You can also move it around, and you can save this as a preset. So A is zoomed all the way out, B is slightly further in, C, and then yeah, let's zoom back out. This is terrifying. So anyways, zoom and FOV, self-explanatory, you know what it does. I will note one thing though. If you have this connected to a Windows PC, for example, and you have an NVIDIA graphics card 2060 or above, you will see another option here, and that option is so it can zoom in and it can track you around the frame. So if you're walking around, it will kind of follow you. The webcam itself won't actually physically move, but just like center stage on the MacBook, it will follow you around. That is using the NVIDIA broadcast technology, which is built into the Camera Hub, but it's not available on the MacBook Pro because these are running Apple Silicon, and of course they don't have NVIDIA graphics cards in them. So moving right along, we have picture. So over here, I've got my contrast set to 48%, saturation at 61%, and sharpness at 50%. These are the best settings that I could find to get the webcam looking this good. I spent a while on this, and this is the best I could get it looking. And honestly, I'm really impressed with the image, especially compared to the other two webcams that I own. Exposure, I turned off automatic. The reason I did that was because if you have it on automatic, it messes with the shutter speed, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to control everything. So let's turn that off. Now to get 60 frames per second out of this webcam, you want it to be 1/60th on your shutter speed. If you have it set to lower than that, then your shutter speed will be slower than 60 frames per second. So if I take it down to 1/30th, then this will be at 30 frames per second. And as you can see, we have more motion blur now. We also have everything overexposed, so I can turn the ISO down. But anyways, let's go back to 1/60th, and I have my ISO set to 192. I can take that down all the way to 100, but as you can see, that darkens the image. So I think the most pleasing to my eye was 192, and I think that looks great. Now let's talk about dynamic range. Now this is a big talking point for me, and there's a reason why I set it to standard rather than high dynamic range, and I'll show you. So let's go ahead and set this to high and watch what happens. Actually, look at the details in my skin. I know I'm getting exposed right now. I don't have beautiful skin. I am not a model. I know, don't tell anyone. Anyways, if I set this dynamic range too high, watch what happens to my skin. We just lost all that detail, and I don't know why. Like, look, this ISO is the same. Let's bump that up a little bit. Seriously, look, let me turn noise reduction off. And look, that detail in my skin just vanished. I can show you a full screen version of this. Look, the detail in my skin vanished. So look, noise reduction is off, right? So you can see noise on this wall and noise behind my shoulder on that wall. If I set dynamic range, no, actually look, let me turn noise reduction on medium. And you likely want to use medium. I read the spec sheet for this webcam. Noise reduction on low is like a 2D spatial noise reduction, and then medium is a 3D temporal noise reduction. And if you put it on high, it uses a combination of the two. So in my experience, noise reduction on medium works the best, but as you can see, I'll show you in a second, setting it on high when dynamic range is set to standard is great. Just check this out. So right now I have noise reduction off, and the detail in my skin is missing, and we are at high dynamic range. So if I set this to standard dynamic range and then bring the ISO back down to 192, look at the detail in my skin. Now you see there's noise on the wall and the wall behind my shoulder right up there. If I set noise reduction to high, a lot of that noise goes away, but more importantly, we retain the detail in my skin. So look, noise reduction off, some of the noise is back, but the detail in my skin is there. Now let's set noise reduction to medium. And there you go. So you get less noise and you get more detail in the image if you leave dynamic range on standard and not high. Now I don't know why that's happening, but what I do know is that standard dynamic range on this, for some reason, is superior to high dynamic range. I don't know if that's a bug, but the way they capture high dynamic range on this webcam is that they sample two images. So they have one underexposed image and one overexposed image, and it does them both at the same time and then combines them with an algorithm and then gives you like an average. So the sensor is capturing at 120 frames per second and then it averages down to 60 frames per second. And that's how you get your 1080p 60 HDR image, because it's sampling at 120 frames per second. But for some reason, we are losing some of the sharpness and some of the detail in the high dynamic range image. If you step it down to standard dynamic range, you retain the detail, then you can have your noise reduction on medium or high. And as you can see, we have all that detail in the skin. Let's put it back on medium. And you don't have much noise at all. And the image is excellent. I mean, look at it, it's great. Just let's compare it to the MacBook Pro webcam again. I mean, this is just embarrassing. Look at this. It's all muddy. There's no detail. I look like I'm made of plastic. I look like I'm in The Simpsons. The colors are all wrong. Everything's washed out and muddy and gross. I mean, look at the artifacting on this wall over here. Look at the flickering. Look at, it's just a smudge. Everything is gross. The Logitech C920, the image is okay, but again, lack of detail. The colors are off and they're wrong. No matter how much I mess with the saturation in the Logitech software, it looks like this. And here we have the Facecam MK2. The colors are great, the noise is minimal, and the detail is fantastic. I mean, seriously, this is a 1080p webcam. This isn't even 4K. And in my opinion, it looks great. So there you have it. It's a no-brainer. Oh, I've got one more thing to show you. Check this out. So if I go to this screen and then full screen this. Okay, so as you can see here, this is showing all of the features of the Facecam MK2. So as you can see, it's full HD at 60 frames per second. Oh, it has flash memory. So when you are setting things on here, so let's say you have your saturation set to 61 or 60 or whatever, let's just change it to 62. If I click save here on the top left, then that saves it to flash memory on the webcam itself. So if you take this webcam off this MacBook Pro and plug it into a different MacBook Pro or a different Windows computer, these settings will just come along with the webcam. You don't have to go and set it up again because the settings are saved on the webcam itself, which is great. I love that feature. It's so cool. Anyways, back to that screen. Right, it's compatible with Camera Hub. It's got DSLR style control, which we just saw on the Camera Hub. It's compatible with the Stream Deck. I don't have a Stream Deck right now, but hopefully I'll get one sometime soon. The aperture of this webcam is 2.4. It has built-in privacy, so it has an easy sliding shutter built directly onto the webcam, so you don't have a lens cap that you can lose like the original Facecam. And it's an ultra low latency video feed with a lot of detail, like we just saw. This, honestly, it's a no-brainer for me. If you're looking for a really good webcam, 1080p 60, and you don't want something that's going to break the bank, this at $150, so it's $149.99 in the UK and the US. This, honestly, in my opinion, is the webcam that you should go for. I mean, just look at the difference between these webcams. It's insane. So let's talk about what this webcam doesn't have. Now, this webcam does not have a built-in microphone, which is great because that saves some cost. Who uses a built-in microphone on the webcam anyways? Honestly, I don't think having a mic included in a webcam is a value add, because I don't know a single person that uses a microphone built into their webcam, let's be honest. Another quick thing I need to mention is we have this effects tab over here. On the MacBook Pro, it's empty. Again, if you're using a Windows PC or something and you have an NVIDIA graphics card 2060 or later, then you do have lots of additional filters that you can add. You can change your background and do some fun stuff, but of course that's not on here. The thing is, if you are on a MacBook though, let me just show you a quick trick. You can do this. So if you click on this purple thing up here on the top of your screen, you can see over here, it shows you a preview of what's being captured on OBS. So I went to Elgato Camera Hub and set it to portrait. And as you can see, the background is now blurry. Steve Jobs' face keeps, that's really weird. But anyways, it's not perfect, but this is doing it through Apple's implementation. So you can use like a fake portrait mode with the webcam through Apple's thing. You can also do, let's turn that off and put studio light on. So now this looks pretty cool. So it makes it look like there's a light directly on you and it kind of dims your background. I quite like this, to be honest. So let's turn that off. And here we go, we're back to normal. Once again, thank you so much to Elgato for reaching out and sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys found this video informative and helpful. And I hope my settings and the tip about standard dynamic range over high dynamic range helped you get the best out of this webcam. And that's about it from me. I know this angle is different from what we normally have here in the studio. I kind of like it and it makes making videos a lot easier. Plus I'm filming on a webcam and not my main camera. So I don't know, that's kind of cool. And it reminds me of the days I used to stream. Who knows if that's going to happen again. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. You've been watching This Brown Geek. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.